Daemon X Machina Titanic Scion is a highly customizable Mecha Action RPG with a focus on multiplayer. It is a game that I am cautiously optimistic about. It could be a hidden gem in a sea of pretty stacked releases in the third quarter of 2025, or it could be a shovelware bust. Luckily for us, a demo has been released for us all to try. After spending a couple hours on the demo, I am left with very mixed feelings. But perhaps these mixed feelings may help to answer a simple question for all of you. Is Daemon X Machina Titanic Scion worth playing? If you enjoy these types of videos, support your boy by hitting that like button and subscribe for more content like this. Thanks. Right off the bat, we're thrusted into a character creator that is pretty good facially, but very limited overall. There are not a lot of options for your physique, but that could be so that the mecha suits, well, more accurately the exosuits, are not overshadowed. A little bit later on, you'll reach your base and you can hide any pieces of armor from showing up during gameplay itself, and you can also recustomize your player character. Once that's done, you're thrusted into the tutorial, where the game makes a not so great first impression, with an opening sequence full of scripted fights in very cramped spaces. There's nothing wrong with that generally, but in Titanic Scion's case, the initial mech suits that you get can be unwieldy to control, and at the same time, you, the players, are still trying to learn said controls. The slog that is the opening sequence doesn't highlight or accentuate the game's strengths. What I did like, however, is that even in the onset, as soon as you defeat any enemy mechas, you're given a choice between one of multiple equipments or parts that you can use immediately, or take back to your base to help upgrade your gear. It makes every corpse you can loot a bit more enticing, and for the initial hours of the game, creates a tiny roguelike experience, where your loadout can get pretty experimental based on what gear you choose to loot and not to loot from the sea of mecha bodies you'll be running across. Once we're dumped into the open world proper, my opinions on Titanic Scion shifted quite a bit. From your home base, you pick out missions to tackle and then set out into the world. In the open zones, you're able to explore to your heart's desire. If there was something to be really excited for with Titanic Scion, it is the co-op potential. I got a chance to try some of the co-op in this game and came out positively surprised even in its demo state. Being able to explore a huge open zone with friends, tackling a variety of missions, finding secrets, and hunting for rare loot together is always a good time. While playing with two other random players, we stumbled upon a mecha boss buried in the sand. It wasn't tied to any particular mission, and I can only assume that there are many other bosses like this, but even though we were undergeared and underprepared, we decided to fight it anyways, which took us quite a bit of time, but once we learned the boss's moveset and where the weak points are, we were able to dismantle it with just a bit of health to spare. That was a bit of fun, even though the reward wasn't so great, and I hope that gets fixed in the full game, because getting a medium healing item after spending 5 healing items is not cool, bro. There's also a chat feature, so if you're playing on PC or something with a keyboard, it is pretty easy to send messages. All you have to do is type on the keyboard. I couldn't figure it out for the first couple minutes because I can't read, but anyways, if you did run into anybody you wanted to become friends with or get into a Discord chat, there you go. The best part about this demo so far for me is the high octane mobility. Flying, skating, just moving around, all these things feel a bit clunky at first, but once it clicks, oh man, it clicks. If you enjoy mobility creep like me, you're gonna freaking love this game. And this is just from the initial impressions. This part of the game only gets better once we, the players, are actually able to make meaningful upgrades and enhancements to our gear in terms of how much it costs to dash and run around, in terms of speed and mobility options and all these other traits. I just really hope that Titanic Scion doesn't make the same mistake of games like Anthem. You have an exosuit with robust mobility, but never make use of it in any meaningful boss fights, encounters, or scenarios that would push you to get good at controlling your exosuit. And thankfully for the demo, I haven't had to fight any enemies in any tight corridors outside of the opening sequence. On the combat side of things, I initially felt that this game wasn't for me. But then again, I'm not the biggest fan of looter shooters and would prefer combat systems with a bit of nuance and depth to them, like Monster Hunter, Elden Ring, or Street Fighter. Not that I need layers upon layers of mechanics, which I can already tell this game will have once you get past the opening hours, more on this later, but what I'm looking for, specifically, is the skill expression in the moment-to-moment gameplay. A little bit into the demo, the players unlock a fusion system that unlocks passive and active skills that can be equipped onto different weapon types. These skills cost a bit of meter that you'll have to manage and are quite devastating and cool to use. So far, you can only equip one skill per weapon type, but that might change in the full release. Even so, that's still not what I tend to gravitate towards when I consider skill expression. In mecha games like Titanic Scion, I assume a huge part of the combat comes from your mobility and the overall loadout that you have. Each individual piece of your loadout are designed to be simple as they are one part of a giant whole. For example, the melee katana has a homing attack which has a multi-hit combo if you mash the attack button. There are no variants in combo routes with this action, and there's nothing wrong with that. But for me, it can get a little bit repetitive from just mashing the attack button and I'm just instantly teleporting to my enemies and hitting them over and over and over again. I prefer being able to mix up my attack options in a drastic way, having different combo routes and so on and so forth. This may not be appealing to some gamers though, so I can understand why they choose to go with this route. I wouldn't complain as much because in these types of games, I tend to go towards the guns and not the melee weapons. But the thing is with Titanic Scion, the gunplay is serviceable. It works, it's fine, but it lacks oomph, especially compared to melee combat. This could very well change with weapons you unlock in the later portions of the game, but also with the game's structure with high-paced mobility, it's more about locking onto an enemy and holding down the shoot trigger instead of doing precision aiming, which is something I enjoy. To add to that, shooting weak points with precision aim, like with a bow, doesn't really provide a satisfying feedback, so I tend to play more towards melee than range in this game. Again, I gravitate towards snipers or precision revolvers for any type of first or third person shooter as a matter of preference and taste, which might actually end up being why I'm very mixed on this combat system. To be more specific, I prefer challenging games. Even on hard mode, Titanic Scion seems like a cakewalk so far. If you are someone who prefers a power fantasy type of game, the simplicity of this game's combat, plus how visceral some of the animations are, may be right up your alley. With all that said, depending on how the combat system progresses as you go deeper into the game with some nuanced enemy encounters, I may actually end up enjoying the combat quite a lot. But as a first impression, I'm leaning towards it's serviceable. But if the later bosses and locales pushes the player to engage meaningfully with all of the game's system, Titanic Scion could be really good, especially in a multiplayer setting. I really hope there are combat scenarios like a chase sequence, an escape sequence, or having to weave between buildings to avoid dangers while fighting a boss. Whatever it is, I hope the devs don't take the lazy route by giving us cool combat encounters in a wide open field with nothing of interest, or by throwing us into cramped corridors to artificially make the game harder. On the visual side of things, it's a mixed bag. The game has an inspired art direction, fluid animations, and particle effects that really sells the feeling of velocity. It's very anime inspired with mecha designs from Shoji Kawamori of Escaflowne and Macross fame, and character art helmed by Kimihiko Fujisaka, who has worked on Miss Walker titles like Terra Battle, The Last Story, and most recently Yoko Taro's Voice of Card RPG series. The 3D models of both the base characters and the mecha designs are on point and look fantastic. What I do have concerns about are the environmental design. This game excels when you have room to dash around and fight in, but if the environment remains mostly empty spaces in barren wastelands, I can see that becoming quite dull very quickly. Maybe it's just my own personal taste, but I find the post-apocalyptic wasteland setting a bit overdone these days. This could very well be a non-factor once we get deeper into the game, where we'd hopefully get access to more interesting biomes with layers upon layers of verticality to make full use of the mech suits' full flight capabilities. If you're looking for a highly customizable mecha experience, Titanic Scion may not match up to the pure scale of something like Armored Core 6, but still offer quite a bit of options, especially for casual or inexperienced players. You will be positively thrilled at the plethora of options you have when customizing your loadout, from colors to decals to weapon placements and to the suit itself. Even with that said, the game is accessible and approachable, there are tons of parts to customize, but it's never really overwhelming. For mecha aficionados, these may be disappointing traits, but for the rest of us, less options help to minimize decision paralysis. Another surprise to me was the script writing and voice direction, especially in English.
What? Cat got your tongue? Broken manners, broken mouth? Is your body a piece of too?
Toby, watch your language. Sorry? Please don't mind him. He gets his foul mouth from his father.
They've really put in some effort, and it shows. Some of the story segments were quite enjoyable with a tinge of humor that didn't overshadow the plot or overstay its welcome. Your character has quite a personality, and you can choose your responses to whatever goes on in the game. I'm not sure if it actually does anything, But it does let you roleplay, which is a plus for these types of games. Even with all the positives in mind, I didn't really get hooked into the story, but if the writing quality and voice acting persists into the later portions of the game, I can see myself getting interested and hooked into the game's lore and world building. With all that in mind, it's time to answer if Titanic Scion is worth playing. For me personally, I could see myself really enjoying the full game, but I am really apprehensive on that combat system. I fear that the game might not spice things up enough to keep me interested hours in. But as a co-op title, this is definitely one I'd play with friends, no questions asked. Varied loadouts, fun boss to tackle with friends, an open world we can explore together, no overly annoying restrictions to initiating co-op. It seems like a really good casual time to unwind with your buddies as you catch up with one another. If you're interested in a highly customizable action RPG that is a bit more casual and don't care too much about the story, you're gonna be in for a great time. If you prefer something more challenging or more grand and cinematic, I'm not sure if you'll find it here. What I can say with certainty, however, is that Daemon X Machina Titanic Scion feels like a passion project. The people behind this game really loves mechas, and it shows. The game is not trying to be everything for everyone. It knows exactly what it wants to be, and is focused on purely delivering that experience. Thanks for watching, and I hope this video helped you get a better understanding of Titanic Scion. Will you be picking up this game? Let us know in the comments below. Personally, I will be checking out the full release. While I may not have all the time to commit to Titanic Scion, I do want to support the developers of this game because I want to see more niche games that are not targeting for the biggest demographic they can, but instead are focused on making an experience that they want. For more fun videos like these, check out the video on screen right now. My name is Varsona, and I'll see you in the next video.